He went to the toilet 10 times a day, but never wiped his butt. Instead, he crumpled the paper into many small balls, wetted them, squeezed out the excess water, then applied glue to maintain the shape, and finally wrapped them in paper and squeezed them. Rub it, and a jailbreak key is made. When the guard helped him unlock the handcuffs, he quietly stuffed the paper ball into the lock, so that he could push the small window open from the inside and access the electronic lock outside. But how can I get the password? When he saw the milk in his lunch, he smiled. The milk carton was exactly the second card key he needed. First, he crushed it with his foot, then gently tore off the wrapping film, and secretly stuck it on the cell door when he went out. The pad was locked so that the guard would leave a mark when entering the code. The film was then peeled off and the 4 keys were identified. After several attempts, the cell door opened. But Uncle Long knew that just opening the cell door would not allow him to escape smoothly. He also needed to escape from the wall. He noticed that this strict prison had a weak point, which was the fire garage next to the solitary room. In order to enter the solitary room, he took the initiative to cause trouble and severely injured the suspect. From the moment he walked into the confinement room, he began to observe secretly, and unexpectedly discovered that there was one person assigned to the monitoring room that was supposed to be guarded by 2 people. During the shift change, both of them would leave the monitoring room and run to the roof of the building. Lighting mosquito coils and taking advantage of the 7 unattended minutes, Uncle Long had enough time to modify the surveillance system, climb directly to the fire station along the ventilation duct, and then quickly put on his firefighting uniform. Now he only needs to wait for his companions to respond and escape from here. A car was detonated outside the prison, the alarm sounded instantly, and the fire truck immediately dispatched for rescue, without noticing Uncle Long hiding under the fire truck. When the guards counted the prison, Uncle Long had already escaped from the prison. But the strange thing is that after successfully escaping from prison, he did not fly away, but appeared in front of the warden. Uncle Long confessed everything. It turned out that he was not a criminal, but a master of escape who was employed by the federal administration to test the security of prisons. In the past 7 years, he has successfully escaped from 15 prisons. He is said to be a man who can never be locked up, but the slaps in the face come so quickly. People from the CIA approached him and wanted him to test a private prison where various prisoners were held. The country's most sinful person. Obviously, this test is very dangerous, but Uncle Long agreed because he didn't want these evil people to escape and continue to do evil. But what he didn't know was that this test would completely make him lose his freedom, and he would soon be caught. One day, the CIA prepared a new identity and contact code for Uncle Long. As a precaution, his subordinates implanted a tracker in Uncle Long. Just as Uncle Long was waiting to be caught, a sudden burst of pain swept through his body. Before he could understand, the CIA what happened, he was dragged into the car and the tracker was picked out. As the sedative was injected, Uncle Long fainted. When the mask was taken off, he couldn't help but gasp. He had never seen a prison like this, with suspended glass cells where urine could be seen, no privacy at all, and heavily armed guards everywhere. To make matters worse, the cameras here provide 360-degree surveillance. Such strict precautions made Uncle Long retreat. When he saw the warden, Uncle Long directly gave the evacuation code. He thought the warden would let him go, but what he never expected was that he ignored him at all and ordered his subordinates to strictly monitor Uncle Long. When Uncle Long returned to the cell, he realized that he had been tricked. He vowed to escape from this damn prison and take revenge on those who framed him. In the eyes of others, this is a terrible prison, but in his eyes, it is an escape room game. Just because he is a master of escape, he can get out of here as long as he finds a loophole. Since then, there has been a strange person in the prison. He lives alone, rarely talks, and looks at everything around him from time to time. From the prison structure to the heavily armed guards, they are all the objects of his observation. But after a few days, he couldn't find any flaws, so it seemed he had to find another way. He changed his usual low-key behavior, deliberately got into an argument with someone, and punched the other person in the face. Unexpectedly, the other person resisted the punch, so he punched Uncle Long with his backhand, causing him to bend over in pain. Uncle Long took the opportunity a backward hug and throw, slamming the opponent to the ground. Then he turned over and choked the opponent's neck. Just as the two of them were tied, several guards rushed out, stunned them, and put them in a solitary room. This is Uncle Long's purpose, to find loopholes in the confinement room. The walls were made of iron plates on 3 sides and a bright light on one side. The dazzling light shone directly and Akira couldn't open his eyes. But Uncle Long still endured the pain and tried hard to observe the structure of the confinement room, carefully touching the floor, trying to find a way to crack it. At the end of imprisonment, he was exhausted, but he had found the loophole he wanted, and a daring escape plan was hatched. But this time he needed help. Uncle Long thought of taking the initiative to show his kindness to Arnold. In order to test whether he was trustworthy, he said that he needed a piece of metal. "As long as you help me get it, I can take you out of here." Arnold agreed, but turned around and told the guards that someone was about to escape. Soon, the warden made an appointment with Arnold, who started talking nonsense and angered the warden with his words. The warden, who was fooled, ordered the prison guards to punish him with waterboarding. They used water pipes to pour water into Arnold's mouth. The warden counted the time leisurely, and at the moment he stopped, Arnold almost drowned. But at this moment, Arnold quickly turned over and got under the table, quickly pulled off the drain cover, and returned to the prison. Arnold directly handed the lid to Uncle Long. Uncle Long now trusted Arnold and told him about his escape state. He found that all the buildings here were vertical, indicating that it might be built underground, and I heard the sound of water in the forbidden area, which means there must be a pipe below. As long as you climb up the pipe, you will be able to return to the ground. Hearing this, Arnold seemed to see freedom, so he took the initiative to ask for revenge, and Uncle Long pinched a piece of bread into his hand. Soon, the fight attracted the prison guards, and they were all put into a solitary cell. As soon as he came in, Uncle Long took out the polished metal piece and shined the strong reflected light on the rivet. After a few dozen seconds, the heated rivet collapsed directly. Uncle Long quickly picked it out, and the others did the same, and all the nails were picked out. Immediately afterwards, he stuffed the hidden bread into his mouth, and at the same time signaled Arnold to attract attention, and Arnold started shouting and making a fuss. Sure enough, everyone in the monitoring room was attracted to it and did not notice that one of the surveillance pictures disappeared. It was Uncle Long who stuck chewed bread on the camera, then lifted up the floor and crawled down, looking for an exit, and finally let him know that he accidentally tore off a wire while climbing. The water valve opened instantly, and the water inside spurted out, but he couldn't stop. When he climbed to the top and opened the lid, he came out. He was instantly stunned by the scene in front of him. This place was not underground, but on the endless ocean. This prison was actually a supercargo ship, and there were guards everywhere. There was no way to escape without anyone to help him. Now he could only back when he was passing through a flood. The strong water pressure washed him down. At the critical moment, Uncle Long successfully crawled back, quickly sealed the cover, and pulled off the bread blocking the camera the moment the guard came in. What seemed to him to be a flawless behavior aroused the suspicion of the warden. It turns out that the warden knew Uncle Long's true identity from the beginning. Only letting Uncle Long be locked up here forever is the best proof of the safety of this prison. Next, the warden began to ask his men to torture him. As soon as Uncle Long fell asleep, the prison guards would know the noise and would not let him sleep. Whenever he was slightly sleepy, he would be dragged up and beaten. As a result, Uncle Long fell into a drowsy state every day, even falling asleep while walking. But even with such torture, the warden still felt that he was an unsafe factor and decided to lock him up in solitary confinement and completely lose contact with the outside world. At this time, Uncle Long panicked. He hurriedly negotiated terms with the warden and obtained the information that the warden urgently needed in exchange for his freedom. The warden had no choice but to agree. But what he didn't know was that Uncle Long already had a plan to escape from prison. First, determine where the tanker is in the sea. Every time he had a meal, Uncle Long would secretly make tools, 2 lenses, a ballpoint pen, a piece of cardboard, and a glass tube to make a simple sextant. Longitude and latitude can be measured by measuring the angle between sea level and polaris, but the problem is that it must be measured on the deck. For this reason, Arnold roped in his archenemy Aid. Ad pretended to inform the warden in exchange for a chance to prey on the deck at night. As soon as he reached the deck, he secretly measured the position using 6 pointers. Based on the measured latitude and the counterclockwise rotation of the water vortex, Uncle Long deduced that it was near the windless zone of the Tropic of Cancer. Based on the warm rain in November, he finally deduced that this was the coast of Morocco. Once the location was known, what was the next step? Get the message out. Uncle Long thought of the doctor who had secretly helped him, so he asked Anoza to stab himself. While the doctor was treating him, Uncle Long revealed his true identity to the doctor. He also asked the doctor to think about his medical oath. I am a good person and you cannot refuse to save my life. Finally, the kind doctor decided to help him deliver the news. The third step is divert the attention of. Late that night, the warden saw Uncle Long banging on the wall. It was Morse code, and he deciphered that there was going to be a riot in Area C tomorrow. The warden immediately sent 3 times the police force to Area C, but it was actually Uncle Long's trap. The real riot is in Area A where Uncle Long is. Due to the lack of police presence, the scene quickly became chaotic. In the chaos, Uncle Long made a sneak attack and knocked down the guard. The 3 of them ran inside smoothly, only to find that there were cameras everywhere. In order to avoid tracking, Uncle Long unscrewed the camera directly. The warden realized that he had been tricked, ordered a complete lockdown of the prison, and sent guards to chase them. During the melee, Adelaide was unfortunately shot. Fortunately, Uncle Long closed the hatch in time and was temporarily safe. The cameras were obviously turned off. How did they know the location? Uncle Long looked around and found a suspicious box. He opened it and saw that it was a motion detector. Uncle Long proposed to cut off the power himself. Before the backup power was activated, they had 5 seconds to open the valve and escape from here, which also meant that Uncle Long had to use Plan B. But Aid knew that he was seriously injured and couldn't escape at all, so he decided to stay and cover Arnold's departure. Soon, the prison guard broke open the hatch, and Aid shot with a gun in both hands. But he was outnumbered after all. Uncle Long knocked out the power supply man with 1 punch and quickly controlled the computer to shut down the circuit. Arnold's side also opened the door and climbed onto the deck. At this time, the responding helicopter also arrived. Arnold quickly ran towards the plane. Finally, Arnold approached the plane, but he did not leave. Instead, he removed his weapon. His eyes became sharp in an instant. He transformed into a Terminator in 1 second and fired wildly at the enemy because he hadn't seen Uncle Long come out yet. But what he doesn't know is that Uncle Long has no way to escape. But the strange thing is that the guards searched every corner, but there was no sign of Uncle Long. In desperation, the warden had to ask his men to restart the power supply, and the water tank began to flush automatically. Seeing all this, the warden suddenly realized something. He actually forgot about the drainage system, and this was Uncle Long's plan B. Following the current, Uncle Long came to the sea. Arnold threw down the rope ladder. Uncle Long was successfully rescued, but the warden also discovered him. Uncle Long picked up the thrown pistol, hitting the flammable object. The warden was already buried in the flames before he had time to react. The illegal prison was finally destroyed and they managed to escape.